don't see any people on yet, so hopefully I'm in the right place. Let me double check. Oh, it looks like I am. Perhaps a lot of people are outside on this beautiful afternoon. In Central Ohio, it's a little bit cool, but it is sunny, so it does feel nice with the sun on your face and sunshine on your back if you're out walking or whatever. Oh, it's a busy day, but thank you for accommodating me on this Thursday afternoon. I usually, as you know, have my Wednesday evening Facebook Live, but I had dinner with family yesterday. I had dinner with Andrea and John and with my ex-husband Peter, and Peter wasn't able to get together with all of us for John's birthday last week because of work. So he was taking them to dinner and I was invited along, so that was nice. And you know that I live by myself, I'm an empty nester, and whenever I get the opportunity to spend time with family, I do my best to take advantage of that and be grateful and for that opportunity and to be present with them. So thank you for accommodating me in my switch from last evening to this afternoon. As you know, it's been quite busy over here at the Knabe house and the Stampin' studio. I'm happy to say that yesterday all of the wedding invitations were stamped and put in the mail. So I'm excited about that. It's a great relief. And then a little bit later today, Andrea and John are picking me up and we're going to Cincinnati to celebrate Emily. Her dad is already there. He left this morning and to spend the day with her. And then we will all be celebrating with Emily tomorrow as she graduates from University of Cincinnati. She's getting a doctorate in physical therapy. Yesterday was her board exam, so a lot of anxiety. I'm sure not as much for me as for her, but I think the whole family was feeling that for her. And with Peter being a physician and us meeting in college, I know what it's like to stand beside somebody who's going through several sets of exams and boards and things like that. But tomorrow's the big day. She graduates and we are so excited. And then we will have dinner with her in the evening. And it'll be a really special day. As Andrea said, it's Emily's day tomorrow. It's all about celebrating her. So I want to throw out a few reminders before we get started today. You know what May 3rd is, right? Tuesday, May 3rd, the first day you can order from the new annual catalog. I'm so excited. My wish list is long. And I will plan to do all 3 of my live videos as scheduled next week. But in addition to that, on Tuesday, May 3rd, the first day that our new catalog goes live, I will be doing a special Facebook Live. We'll do a catalog walkthrough. I'll point out some new products in there and some that I think perhaps may be overlooked, but I don't want you to miss them. And then I'll give you some of my favorites and why those are my favorites. So you definitely don't want to miss Tuesday. And I will be giving away some product prizes. So you'll definitely want to take part in that. I'm not exactly sure what time it will be just yet. Probably 11 o'clock on Tuesday morning, but I will confirm that with you on Monday. So I'm super excited. If you are still in need of a catalog, and if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to work with you. I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. You just have to message me your full name and mailing address and email, and I will send you a complimentary catalog. If you are one of my customers and have placed a Stampin' Up! Order from me in the last, I think I did 9 months, then you should have received a catalog by now. But also if, and if you are a customer of me from before then and haven't placed an order in that time frame, that's not a problem. I'm happy to send you a catalog as well. You just have to let me know that you would like one, okay? I am in a swap with 15 other people. My swaps went out in the mail yesterday, and I'm waiting for others to come in. But so far I've received a couple. And this one in particular, I have to look and see who it's from Sheila Palmer. And it's beautiful. It uses the new Orchid Oasis cardstock, lovely color. And she did some white embossing on the front here, butterfly embellishments, beautiful card, simple card. But one thing I wanted to point out to you is she used the brick embossing folder. And do you notice that dark color in what I'll say the mortar and on parts of the brick? That got me to thinking. I haven't shown specifically embossing folder techniques in a while. So that's my plan today, is to show you some different ways you can use embossing folders. Now, while I have several embossing folders, I decided I would use our newest one of our newest ones, which is in the new annual catalog, and that's the Fern embossing folder. So I'm going to flip my camera around now, and we're going to get started on seeing some embossing folder techniques. While I'm flipping my camera, would you please share this live video and invite others to join us? Might take me a couple extra minutes here to get my camera set up. I had a couple of meetings Tuesday evening, so I took my stand and my camera upstairs for that. Plus, I want to adjust it because we're using the large Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine today. Now, let's see. Come on, Mary. It's a bit touchy today. I don't know what the problem is. There we go. Maybe. Sometimes I move it too much. Okay, sorry about all that moving around, but I think that looks good now for today's purposes. I hope so. All right, so I said the featured product today would be the Fern 3D embossing folder. And of course, with this, we'll be using the large or standard size Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I want to point out that this Fern embossing folder is part of the Sun Prints suite in the new annual catalog. I've shown this before, but in case you missed when I've shown these lovely papers, I'll show that to you now. So the idea behind these papers is placing an object on dark paper and putting it outside in the sun to, and then the sun can bleach areas and things like that. Did you ever try that as a kid, the sun bleaching? So that's the idea behind the Sun Prints Designer Series paper and the whole suite. And then the back side has prints that are a little more subtle, maybe background prints, and they're just lovely. And the coordinating color right here is gray granite, which really is a favorite subtle of mine. And then the bundle that goes with that is Nature's Prints. So you can see how the Fern embossing folder coordinates with all the products in the Sun Prints suite. So I'm going to be showing you different ways to use this embossing folder, and then I will show you some of the cards made with those techniques. So a couple things to point out here. Very, very, very important. When you're working with embossing folders, you're going to use plate 1 and then plate 4, okay, with your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. We do have a few smaller size embossing folders, like this one, for example. It's a pair, and you can see the embossing folders are narrower. These ones fit in the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, but anything of the standard size or even this larger square size requires you to use the large Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So if you love embossing folders, I would suggest you go with this machine as opposed to the mini, because there are not many small embossing folders, but there's lots of the standard size and that very large size. The other thing that is extremely important for you to know is anytime you're using embossing folders, be sure that you put the folded end into the machine first when you're rolling it through, okay? Whichever way you roll it, the folded part of the embossing folder should go through first. Very, very important. If it doesn't, if you send in the opened end first, it can cause this to break right along the fold. And you might think, well, you can just put those together and use them anyways, but it does not work the same. It will not give the same good impression. And one other thing to note about the embossing folders, I think all of them now are being made with a line across. That line is to help you put your cardstock in there straight. Now, on this embossing folder, because the pattern is real random, it doesn't make a difference so much. However, with something like, well, here's that brick one. With something like the brick embossing folder, you do want to pay attention to that line, regardless of, you know, do you want your bricks to go this direction, or if you want them to go this direction, okay? And of course, I would be sending in with the fold side first. But you just want to make sure that the edge of your cardstock is straight or parallel with that line. If you don't, if you put it in any which way, you're going to have lopsided bricks for your card. And nobody wants that, right? So that's the purpose of that line. So, like I said, it doesn't really matter so much with the Fern embossing folder, but I will try to remember to put it on the line just so that you're remembering that purpose of that line printed on our embossing folders. So typically I'm going to call the side, this is hard to do because, let me see if I can raise this even a little bit more. That emboss machine is so big, it's hard to get it, the whole thing in the frame. But that might be a little bit better. Okay. So I like to think of the side with the Stampin' Up! Logo and the line as being the top. And that's the side that's going to do the embossing, okay? So when you have your cardstock in here, that means this side is going to be pushing, it's going to have the raised part, the embossed side. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see the beautiful detail in there. And that's just one swipe through the machine. Gorgeous detail. And here's an example of a card I did with that. Now, there's something else you can do. And I'll just put it in the same way. And I'm going to run it through again. And I know what you're thinking, Mary, that's just what you did. Why are you doing it again? That's because I want to show you this. take it out. It looks the same, but flip it over. And now you can use the debossed side. Okay, the raised side is called embossing. The back side where it's pressed in gives you a debossed look. And here's a card I made, the very same card I made as the first one, but I have the debossed side up. So if you compare these side by side, I have embossed and debossed sides showing. And it may not look like a huge difference to you in the camera, but it's a subtle difference, and you definitely can see that on here. And this is something fun to try. I would suggest you try with different embossing folders, especially ones with a larger, maybe a larger flower or something like that. You definitely get some real different looks. All right, so let's set this aside for a moment, and I'll just show you really quickly how I finished off these cards. I adhered the embossed or the debossed cardstock, whichever you're referring to. You might have one way, might prefer one way over another, and that may even vary with the different embossing folders you use. And then where's my ribbon? And then I simply tied a bow around the front. For the sake of time, because I have more cards to show you, I'm just going to tie a knot this time. Which will work great with me adding a sentiment. Whereas the first card I made, I didn't put a sentiment on. I thought I could use it just as a note card or add a special sentiment later. And there is nothing wrong with just tying a simple knot and leaving some ends that you cut at an angle. Cut this one down just a little bit more. You don't always have to tie a knot. I know some of you are anti-bows. So if you're anti-bows or they're difficult for you, no worries. A knot, using a knot is perfectly fine. And then, where did I put the stamp set? Okay, here it is. I was gonna say, how could that disappear? Now I will point out that in here, there is this lovely label die, and it will even emboss an edge all the way around it. But again, for the sake of time, because today I want to show you different techniques with the embossing folders, I'm going to opt to use this punch or a punch instead. Not 100. And I'm going to stamp with Soft Succulent. I hope you all have Soft Succulent and Evening Evergreen. These, let me do it this way. These two greens have been used so much in my Stampin' Piece studio. And of course, they were used with some of the wedding things as well. especially evening evergreen. Lots of that used. Oh, I'm going to have to show you the finished invitation. I don't think you've seen the finished wedding invitation. And it is upstairs. So you'll have to wait till another day. Sorry about that. I just thought of that now. And actually it was at the on the railing at the top of the stairs for me to bring down, and I completely forgot. But they turned out beautifully, and she was very excited. And note too, if you want to move where your bow or your knot is, you just curl that paper, and then you can easily slide your ribbon around. So if I want to push it up or down or move it left or right, it's really easy for me to do that. I'm going to go up a little bit higher on this. So don't think once you have your ribbon tied in place that you're stuck with it there if you want to move it, because you're not stuck. You just curl those layers, and you can very easily move that knot. I'm trying to think, where do I kind of like it up there? You know what? Let me try this. I guess it could be either way, right? I was deciding if I want it on top of the ribbon or a little bit below the ribbon. But I really think either way looks great. So I'm going to put it over the ribbon, and I'm going to have it centered from left to right. You know what? I'm going to put one more dimensional behind it. Because it's sitting on that ribbon, it's lifting up a little bit. So I want to put a dimensional at the top that'll hold that in place a little bit better. All right, so I think that's pretty simple, elegant. And we'll do the same thing with this one. But I should have these dimensionals at the top and bottom, so they are hitting on the cardstock, not just on my ribbon. And then it will be held in place a little more sturdily. Sturdily, is that a word? Sounds like turtley, like a silly word. And then I'm just going to put these layers onto a So Saffron card base. And isn't that a pretty coordinating color for this soft succulent? I was playing around with colors earlier, colors of cardstock, and I came up with so many that look great with this. But I typically, like we all know, it goes well with evening evergreen and many of the other greens. And then I was trying Blackberry Bliss and Rich Razzleberry, and they're all dark and they were all beautiful. But I started thinking, oh, let's do something lighter and brighter. And I found that the So Saffron really looks great with the soft succulent cardstock. All right, hang on because I'm giving away lots of cards today. All right, so that is embossing and debossing. Simple, easy way to use your embossing folder. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to bring in, close this up. I'm going to bring in my Evening Evergreen ink pad and a blending brush. And we're actually going to, let me set this up. We're actually going to be applying ink. And we're going to try it on the tops by putting ink on the top side first, and then we'll put ink on the opposite side. So I'm just going to add ink to my blending brush, and I'll do one side at a time. And I'm just going to swirl that ink on the inside of the embossing folder. Okay. And if you want to add more, you can certainly do that. You can even tap it to get some darker spots in there if you would like to do that. But I'm going to swirl it and kind of smooth out the color. But you can, you know, add more or less color. And by the way, my pieces that I'm using today of basic white are all 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. I'm just going to lay that on there. I don't want to move it around too much because I'll smudge, but I want to make sure I'm scooting it over from the edge. I'm going to close this up. Does anybody know what I need to do before I stick this through the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine? I need to turn it around. Okay, turn it around because I need that folded edge of the embossing folder to go in first. Lori, you do not need to tap off before adding it to the embossing folder. The ink will not drip. Let me show you. I can swirl and swirl and swirl and nothing happens. I can tap and nothing's happening. You can see right here, that's dust, but you can see I can keep tapping, nothing happens, all right? So you don't have to worry about that with the blending brushes. It's picking up plenty of ink, but the ink will not drop. It will be held in the bristles. Fold first. Oh, I'm glad to know that. You guys are good listeners. You always want to put the folded end of the embossing folder through the machine first. It must go through the rollers first. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? And you can see, now remember I said I think of the label side as the top. So that's where I put the ink. And that, because it's pushing the paper upward, it's the ferns that remained white, and then it puts some color behind those ferns. Really pretty. And then, I'm gonna wipe this off. Now, if you have a sink right in your craft room, I always thought that's so handy. I don't, but I have a bathroom right over here. But I don't want to get up and go to the sink every time I need to clean this. So I spritz it with some water and wipe it off like that. You might even just press it between a paper towel, and you can see I got most of it off. Maybe I'll spritz a little more. You could use baby wipes if you want. But you do want to do your best to clean that off. Otherwise, you're going to end up with inky fingers and inky mess everywhere if you're doing different techniques like I am today. It's also a good idea to roll up your sleeves. I always find when I'm using embossing folders and ink, I really should roll up my sleeves because I end up getting a little bit on my fingers and then it ends up on my sleeves, whatever. So now, okay, we put ink on that side. Now I want to put ink on this side and see what happens. So I'm again going to ink up my blending brush. I just swirled the blending brush in the ink pad, and then I'm swirling the ink onto the opposite side of the embossing folder this time. I don't necessarily have to go edge to edge because my cardstock is smaller. So I'm going to drop this on here, close up my embossing folder, I've got my fold end ready to go in first. And I have when I tell you that, it's so important to do it that way so you don't end up breaking your embossing folder. I have done it. I know the rule. I know the reason why, but one time I was in a hurry and yes, I put it through, and as soon as I heard the snap, then I knew what I had done. I had realized what I had done. Okay, so now by putting the ink on the opposite side of the embossing folder, now the ink is really in, kind of like embedded into the fern leaves. So here's the difference. All right. So you just get a very different look by doing the opposite from one to the other. Oh, Lori, I see what you mean. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about ink dripping. I really find that with the embossing folders, like if I would put it down, because of the texture in the embossing folder, I can spread that ink out. But some people like that for a look, maybe tap in some darker areas. Okay, if you don't want to see that, you can blend it out because this is plastic. If we were doing it on cardstock, that spot remains because it's already embedded into the paper, embedded into the cardstock. But since this is plastic, and plastic can't absorb the ink, we can move it around like that. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. All right, let me put that aside. And we'll make a couple of quick cards with this. So we're going to, with this one, we're going to use soft succulent card bases. There's one and two. You'll notice I cut my card bases a little bit differently this time. Instead of scoring at 4 1/4 and cutting at 5 1/2, I did the opposite. I scored at 5 1/2 and then cut the cardstock at 4 1/4. So you get the very same size, the standard 4 1/2 by 5 finished card, but it just opens top to bottom instead of from side to side. And then I have all these pieces of evening evergreen. And don't think, I like to tell you, use what you have, right? And to not waste, to use up your scraps, find ways to use them. Well, on one of the projects for the wedding, which we were using lots of evening evergreen, and I can't remember what exactly we cut, but I had all these pieces left, okay? I have all these pieces left. So I decided I was using those today because that's just the way I am. I will find a way, oops, wrong side. I will find a way to use these. So watch what I do. And honestly, I don't even know what the measurements of those evening evergreen rectangles are. I just had a stack of them and I thought I'm finding a way to use them. And this is what I came up with. And really you could do this with squares or rectangles of any size. I'll put it against here so you can see it a little bit better. So just a different way to frame the focal part of your card. I'm going to add a little adhesive here. And then we're going to put lots of dimensionals behind. Oh, Lori, I'm excited that you're finding new ways to do blending. Awesome. I'm so happy about that. And I'm so glad that you did some nice blending with that birdhouse class to go. I have to give a shout out to Lori Hall and everybody who purchased my birdhouse class to go, because that was my largest class ever. I made, let's see, 25.9. I made 34 kits for that class that went out in the mail. And it was just so much fun, and I was so excited. Makes me feel great, like I'm working hard and it's paying off when my classes are growing and followers are growing and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so now I'm going to do the same with the other one, which has the debossed side up. And the ink filling in the ferns rather than just the empty space. Oops, I don't know why I opened that. When I lived in Cincinnati, I would go to Costco every spring. Well, I went lots of places to buy flowers, to be completely honest. And I still love shopping for flowers. But I would always love to go to Costco, and sometimes Kroger had them, but usually Costco, and get the real large ferns. And I had 2 big urns, and I would put those on my front porch. We had a very large front porch. And it was completely covered, so didn't get a lot of sun, and the ferns looked gorgeous there. So that's what I was thinking of when I was making these today. All right, so that's that. I'll have to use a different punch, I believe, but let's do this one. You're on my mind. I think this first punch is a little... Oh, it might work. We'll try it. And if not, we'll choose a different one. And this time, I think I will stamp with... Oh, before I thought I was stamping with soft succulent. I guess I stamp... Oh, no. You're right. I'm right. The other was stamped with soft succulent, but this sentiment I'll stamp with the Evening Evergreen. I like too that because even though I used Evening Evergreen ink, it goes on very subtly. I love this sentiment, you're on my mind. Just a different way to say, I'm thinking of you. Everybody likes to know they're thought of. Oh, it does fit. Yay! Again, the coordinating die set has a wonderful die for the sentiments in this set. But just for the sake of time, because we're making so many cards today, I'm choosing to use a punch. Feel like it needs something behind it. How about I don't know if I like that. Nah, I think I'll go with the other one. And see if I can get 2 out of this one piece. Oh, I can. Good. Oh yeah, that's much better. It makes that sentiment pop. Lori, I'm so glad you enjoyed the cards in the Garden Birdhouses class to go. If anybody missed that class and you're having buyer's remorse, you can purchase the PDF tutorial in my PDF store on my blog, www.stampinpeace.com, and you just go to click on PDF store in the bar at the top. It's a red bar across the top of the blog page. Easy to find. And you can purchase it and pay for it, and it's available to download immediately. I'm deciding how I want these. I kind of like them off to the corner just for something different. But do I want the white? No, I think I want it up here. So there's 2 more cards I'll be giving away. Hint, hint, hint. I hope you're sticking around. I hope you're inviting others, sharing this and inviting others to get in on the fun. We might even need a little bling on here. What do you think? Do we need some bling? Oh, you know what? Here's something fun to use. I probably shouldn't be opening this one because I already have one opened, I think. Oh, here it is. I've got retiring product, new product, stuff all over the place. Just gonna, oops. I don't know if I want that there. I'm about down to the end of my putty. And I have to order new ones. I don't have any more. Okay, I'm going to do this. And this. And then I'm going to use these smaller ones and these rounded corners. These are rustic metallic dots in the new catalog. I like that. Great masculine card too, don't you think? I think so. That's the nice thing about this Fern embossing folder and the Fern cards. They can be masculine or feminine. They would work well for thinking of you, sympathies, birthdays, just about any occasion you can think of. All right, let's do a little bit more embossing. And this is where it's going to start to get messy. I'm warning you. Try and think, should I show you first or... Okay, I want to, well, the side I want is cleaned. So let me go over. Here's another way to clean. There's lots of options. I still think running it through the faucet is the best, but you can spritz it like I did before and wipe with a paper towel, or you can use a baby wipe or some kind of damp cleaning cloth. You can use the chamois. You just have to pat and pick up that ink. So it's a little bit different using the chamois than putting, you know, instead of dropping the stamp and tapping it into the chamois, you have to tap the chamois onto your embossing folder to get it nice and clean with the chamois. So that's another way you can clean it. But I'm going to go back to the beginning and we're just going to do some simple embossing here. There's still a little bit ink on it. It will be okay because of what I'm about to show you. As always, we put the folded end in first. Whoops, it slipped right out. So I've got that. And then I'm going to use a sponge. Well, I'll go ahead and, I'm trying to think, what do I want to do? Maybe we'll do it two ways. So I'm going to, again, use an ink pad and a blending brush. And Lori, like you mentioned earlier, this is where, since I'm working with cardstock in my blending brush, I do want to rub off on the scrap paper first and then move on to the embossing folder. And you can see as I'm swirling my blending brush around, those raised fern leaves are picking up the majority of the ink. There's some ink getting onto the background, the open spaces behind the fern leaves, but generally it's the raised fern leaves that are picking up the ink. Now, if I want to go in and make some areas darker, I can do that. Again, you want to start off on your scrap paper and then move to your cardstock. That's how you avoid, as Lori said, those blobs on your paper. Okay, so you get a lot of variation in the color there. And let's do one more. And I'll show you another way to apply. I can't find my embossing folder. Here it is. I'll show you another way to apply the ink. There are several ways you can apply the ink. So far we've done it putting ink on both sides of the inside of our embossing folder. And then now I'm showing you ways to apply ink directly to the embossed cardstock. Now for this, I want to use a sponge. Our sponges come like this, our stamping sponges. You get 3 in a package. And I think you're kind of wasting, and it's a little much to work with a whole one. So I like to just cut my sponge into pie-shaped pieces, triangles. And you just tap lightly. And with the sponges, you do have to tap a good bit for it to pick up a good amount of ink. You can test it out on your scrap paper, okay? And you can even swirl to get an idea of how much ink you have on your sponge. And then I'm just going to start off, and I can either swirl like this, or I could tap it on. I think with embossing folders or embossed cardstock, I think you get a better look if you swirl the ink on rather than just tap it. But really that tapping is just another way. So you decide, but I think you get a more prominent look by sponging or by swirling the sponge. And again, it will fill in some of those flat areas, but the majority of ink will be going onto the raised fern leaves. So here we basically did the very same thing. The first one was with the blending brush. This one was with the sponge. You might have a preference, one or the other. This is a softer look, and this is a bit more bold, detailed look. I kind of like the bold, more detailed look, but it's certainly just personal preference. I'm going to put these together on card bases real fast here. And then I'm going to show you another way to add ink. So you're getting, so I don't want anybody to tell me they don't know what to do with their embossing folders. They don't know how to use them. I'm giving you lots of different ideas. And the reason I want to give you so many ideas is because I want you to, let me double check my size here. Yes, that's what I want. The more versatile our products are, the more we tend to use them. And I want you to get the most money for your, or most use from the money you're investing in your products. And that's why I'm showing you so many different ways to do that. And remember, I've cut all of the pieces that we're embossing 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. So I've made the layer just a little bit larger. And that is 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. Okay, so that's the one done with the sponge. You could also use sponge daubers to add the ink. Blending brushes, stamping sponge, or sponge daubers. And they're all going to give you a little bit different look. That's the stamping sponge. This is the blending brush. Which all do you prefer? I'm looking to see. Holly says she likes the sponged also. Joyce likes the bold one also. Yeah. And you know, with something like this, I think it's good for you to try all the different ways. And honestly, you might have different reasons to use the blending brush style on one occasion and a different reason to use this on another occasion. And you can see that they all look beautiful. They're just so different. And let's add some sentiments. What else do we have here? How about hello there? To me, hello there just sounds very, what do I want to say? Cheerful. Thinking of you, or you're on my mind, sounds a little more serious. Hello there to me sounds a little more cheerful. Oops, there's something on that stamp. Hold on one second. Or maybe it's on the ink pad. And with this, I already know I'm using the same Label Me Fancy punch, but I'm not going to mount this on a different color cardstock because I think I'm going to really like the way that white stands out against the inked embossed cardstock. And you know what I think would look really pretty here? Instead of doing another green on green, let's put a little gold behind there. I've got all these scraps. And I think we'll just cut a little piece of gold. Oh, shoot, I smudged that. But let's just do, and I'm not even gonna worry about the width. And let's see. I need this to be, I want this to be 3.5 inches, I think. Okay, I'm gonna have to restamp that one. Do you see how I smudged that a little bit? Nobody wants that, right? Let me give that a moment to dry. I'll put this on. And I think I'll add this with multi-purpose glue. And then I'll pop this on a couple of dimensionals on top of it. Ooh, I love the gold with it. What do you think? How about you? You can decide how high or low you want that gold strip. You might want to cut yours a little more narrow. You might want to banner cut the ends. You can do all kinds of things. Okay, very lovely, if I do say so myself. Gorgeous. Okay, that's 6 cards we've made. Now we're on an hour, so we're not going to make any more cards, but I'm going to show you this, and then I'm going to show you another way to add color to your embossed cardstock. So in here, I've just inserted a piece of vellum. Vellum is one of those overlooked products. Isn't that elegant? And I just want to, I'm just going to lay this on here so you could see. So that could be vellum against the evening evergreen background. I personally always prefer, I shouldn't say always, but most often prefer the vellum behind white. The other thing you might consider is vellum on a lighter color. Here it is on a metallic gold, which looks really pretty. And you know what? I'm down to scraps of my gold, so I'm not going to be able to finish off a card like that. But I think that's what I would choose to do. Put it on gold, and then perhaps put the gold on the evening evergreen. I'll have to order some more metallic gold foil sheets and finish off that card. All right. Now this is going to be messy when I show you this. I saved the messiest for last. So on here, you can do this a couple different ways. Well, I'll show you both ways. You can add ink to your embossing folder, just like we did before. You can tap it on if you want. You can sponge it on. You can swirl it on. any way you want. Okay, I'm gonna put a little more on, just to get a little more so you see the effect a little bit better. And I know you're thinking, Mary, we already did this. You already showed this. Nope. Because now I'm going to take a spritzer. This is filled with water. Some people will use rubbing alcohol in here. Some people will use like half water, half rubbing alcohol. I typically just have water in mine. And I'm just going to spritz it lightly. Hold it up kind of high and just spritz a couple times. You can see some of the water droplets on there. And I would say hold it up higher and just do a couple of spritzes. You're going to lay your cardstock on it. Close up your embossing folder. I'm going to turn mine so that I have it going in fold first. No broken embossing folders. Lori, that comment just kind of made me laugh. I am having fun. I know it's like, I know, I feel like a kid on a playground or a kid in an art room being let loose. Honestly, that's how I feel on days like this. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. I love it. Totally different look. Now, here's one I did earlier, and I did the same side, but here you can see I spritzed on a lot more water. It wasn't that I put a lot more ink on, it's that I spritzed much more heavily. I personally like it both ways. I think probably a little less is maybe the way to go, but it could be just like using the blending brush to apply ink to the cardstock versus using the sponge. You get a different look. So a little less water, a little more even, a little more subtle. More water spritzed, you get some deeper areas of ink on there. All right, so that's with spritzing, putting ink on, and then I feel like there was one other I was going to show you. Let me think a moment. Oh, here. I know what it is. I'm going to clean this off. Does anybody have the spritzers? I have them. I love them. I love what you can do with them. I just don't think to get them out and use them very often. But it really is a fun thing to do. Karen, you're saying the same thing. You never thought about spritzing the embossing folders. Okay, here's something else that's different. I'm going to pull in my scrap paper. Let me flip this over so you can see it a little better when I do this. This time, instead of having just water in a spritzer, and these come in sets. I don't remember if you get 2 in a set or whatever, but I have several of them. Instead of just spritzing clear water, I have water in here, and then I just added like 2 drops of Evening Evergreen re-inker. And you could use 1 drop in a full spritzer, or you could use 5 drops in a full spritzer. But you know, you just experiment and play, try it out. So let me show you. Here's, if I just spritz this cardstock, and then I probably would use a paper towel and maybe just dab it a little bit. That's kind of the effect you get. And you can see I could add more of the re-inker and make that even darker. But it's just a fun technique. But instead of spritzing, so I could really spritz the cardstock and then emboss this. You want to see that? You probably want to see that, don't you? Okay, we'll just do that too. I wasn't planning that. I'm adding things to my list as I go along here. Now you can see there's quite a bit on there. Also, make sure you wipe your work surface, especially with this one, because there is ink in it, and you don't want that over all your other projects. And then just dab up some of that excess. And then I can put this into my embossing folder. Okay, I just have to ask, how many of you are wanting to add the Fern embossing folder to your wish list for Tuesday? Oh, also next week is Small Business Week. So I'll be having some extra surprises going on. But look at that. Now this needs to dry. I won't put this on a card yet because it's still a little damp and I want it to dry thoroughly. And again, that's with Evening Evergreen, and I could have done a little bit more. I could even spritz now and add some speckles of color. Oh, look, we might as well, right? We're just playing. We might as well. Might go up quite a bit. Okay. And I'm just going to let that dry. All right, let's wipe this up. Again, we're down to the messiness. Make sure you have paper towels, wipes, whatever you need to keep your area clean. Now this time, okay, what did I do? I did spritzing the cardstock and then embossing. This time I'm going to spritz right onto my embossing folder. Again, hold it kind of high up. I don't like to be too close. And you can put as much or as little as you want on there. Lay your cardstock on. And remember, you just want to set it down, not move it around. And close up that embossing folder. And the fun thing about this is each one will turn out a little different. And I think that's fun. When you're making large numbers of something, and you can do a technique like this, so that even though you're doing the very same thing for each card, each one will look unique. And I think that's something special about doing handmade cards and handmade projects. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? So all these, we're just playing with water and ink. All right, so I'm going to just push those aside. I'm over an hour, which is really long for my Facebook Lives. And I have to pack and get ready to go to Cincinnati to celebrate Emily's graduation tomorrow. I'm so excited. But let me do one final wipe and I'll bring all 6 of the cards we made in here. And this is probably a Facebook Live video that you will want to review because a lot has happened. I showed you a lot of techniques, a lot of different ways to use your embossing folders and ink. And really, all of these techniques would work with any and all of your embossing folders. It's just a matter of sitting down and playing with what you have. So please do that. And again, the more we play, just like kids, the more we let them play and have fun and get dirty, the more imaginative they become. And the more we sit and play with our arts and crafts supplies, the more creative we become. So anyways, this was my inspiration using ink. Here I showed just plain old embossing of cardstock. And then I did the same thing, but I flipped the cardstock over after I embossed and put the deboss side up. All right, emboss side up, deboss side up. Very same thing. just flipped. Then we did this, and this was using our blending brushes to apply ink to the embossing folders. This one we applied on the inside top of the embossing folder, and this we applied on the inside of the bottom part of the embossing folder. So again, just different looks. And again, showing the embossed and debossed sides. And then this was embossing the cardstock first, and then going over the whole thing with the blending brush and Evening Evergreen ink. You can see you get a very soft look to it. And then this one, we embossed the cardstock and then applied Evening Evergreen ink with a Stampin' sponge. All right. And then, of course, lastly, we did lots of spritzing here. Okay, lots of spritzing. Spritzing of embossing folder, spritzing of cardstock, and then embossing, spritzing of the embossing folder, and then embossing again. So lots of different things. So I hope you had fun. I hope you learned some new things. I hope that I have inspired you to use your embossing folders in new ways. Alrighty. And just a reminder, the Fern embossing folder is in the new catalog, along with the other products in the, what did I call it? Sunprints suite. So you won't be able to order this until Tuesday, May 3rd. The spritzers are in the annual catalog. I believe they come in packs of 2, and I think, if I remember correctly, I saw somebody. Yes, GM, thank you. They are currently 2 for $3, and they will be $3.25 in the new catalog. But they're great. They are so fun, so versatile. You can even put metallic, drops of metallic ink in. We don't sell metallic ink, but we used to, and I did that. And just a lot of fun. There's a whole bunch of things you can do just with these. So I hope you learned something new. I hope you picked up some fun tips. And now I have 6 cards to give away. So if you would like to receive one of these 6 cards, please comment now, Fern embossing folder. Okay, Fern embossing folder. Oh, Janelle, yes, you're a demonstrator, so you were able to order that suite this month early on the pre-order. Don't you love that about being a demonstrator? Just one more reason why I love being a demonstrator. We get to get our hands on some of the new products a bit early, which is always fun. All right, any questions about what you've seen today? Fern embossing folder. Any questions? Let me scroll back. I know I answered a couple along the way, but I want to give a shout out to everybody that's here. I see, let's see, Joyce, Lori, Suzanne, Melinda, Marianne, Vesta Strebe, Holly, Lori, Marianne, Karen. Who else did I see? Cheryl is here. I know I missed some. Stella's here. Stella, I think I just put a card in the mail to you. I think you were a recent winner. Okay. Thanks to all of you for joining me today on this Thursday. Thank you for accommodating me at this on this different day and different time, since I had dinner with family last night. And I'm going to say goodbye now because I'm going to finish packing, so I'm ready when John and Andrea pick me up. And I'm going to enjoy celebrating Emily and her accomplishment tomorrow with the rest of the family. Have a great weekend. I will not be having a Facebook Live tomorrow since it is Emily's graduation day, but I will be back on Monday.